Number two, frankly, I don't know why the president felt the need to tweet on this subject at all. You know, when you argue with a fool, you just prove there are two. And I consider Congresswoman Omar, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Tlaib, Congresswoman Presley, I think is her name. They call themselves the Squad. I consider them to be fools. They hate America. They think America was wicked in its origins, and it's even more wicked today. They ought to be thanking America instead of calling America evil and wicked and racist. But this is America, and they have the right to their opinion. But I don't like to see the president even dignify their point of view. Besides that, I think that the Squad, as they call themselves, they are destroying the Democratic Party. You know, when your opponent is screwing up, don't interrupt him. Let him go. I mean, just looking at this from a political standpoint, if I didn't know better, I would think the members of the Squad were GOP plants. I mean, they think that illegal immigration, socialism, higher taxes, abortion are all moral goods. They think America, Israel, free enterprise are moral bads. That's not what most Americans believe. And that's kind of where I am on the subject. The president has explained his position. He has said, look, here's what I meant. If you're not happy living in America, leave. It's a free country, and I agree with that assessment.
Congratulations. I want to just talk to you, at least initially, a little bit about the law. Ms. Boudou, what's the adequate and independent state grounds doctrine?
Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
You're welcome.
In my practice, I actually haven't had an opportunity to use that principle or doctrine, but my general understanding is that it speaks to the fact that if a federal court is able to resolve an issue based on state law grounds, then that is what should lead in terms of the court's ultimate decision.
Okay. What is the selective incorporation doctrine?
That also, in the voting rights or civil rights context, is a term that I haven't had to come across. But what I do know is that as a legal research and writer, and for sure confronting possibly new areas of law, I look very forward to doing my due diligence in terms of making sure I'm familiar with doctrines such as that one.
Do you know what it is?
So, no, I'm not familiar with it sitting here
Selective
today.
incorporation doctrine? Okay. Well, you're going to see a lot of it if you're confirmed on the 11th Circuit. Can Congress pass any law that the Constitution doesn't prohibit?
Based on the frame of your question, I would say yes, that sounds right.
So you think Congress has plenary power?
Well, I would first look to what the Supreme Court has said in terms of following precedent.
No, but I'm interested, if I could, Counselor, in your opinion. Does the United States Congress have delegated powers or plenary power?
Well, the Congress has both, I would say, from my general understanding. Again, it depends on the context and the issue, but
Okay.
it is.
Can you explain the difference to me between strict scrutiny and intermediate scrutiny?
Senator, strict scrutiny is the highest level of scrutiny that's often applied in constitutional cases.
What's the definition? I'm sorry, go ahead. Excuse me.
So it requires that a state, when enacting a law or regulation, have a compelling governmental interest for doing so, and that the law is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest.
Okay.
And then intermediate, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, so intermediate speaks to the issue of having a substantial interest or that is, or an important governmental interest that is substantially related.
Okay. Do you believe that the meaning of the Constitution is immutable, or does it change over time?
Senator, I would say that the Supreme Court in some cases has analyzed that issue, and the response really does depend on the context and the issue. But what the court does or has done in its approach, of course, is look to the plain meaning of a statute or of the Constitution, because that really is where the inquiry should start. And if the language is plain, then that is where the inquiry can end.
Okay, thank you for that. You were involved in a 2021 report from the Southern Poverty Law Center about voting in Louisiana. Did you say, quote, racist white Southerners, close quote, and, quote, hostile white voters and governmental officials in Louisiana continue to make local polling places and early voting locations threatening spaces for black voters? Did you say that?
Senator, I do not believe that I said that. I haven't read that publication in some time.
Will you help write it?
I helped to draft the publication and approved it, but I'm not familiar with that language.
No, okay. In that same report, did you say, well, tell me where in Louisiana local polling places and early voting locations are threatening African-American voters? You said it, so which polling places?
So again, Senator, obviously I don't have that report in front of me to be able to read and remind myself of the examples that might have been shared. But what I can say is that Louisiana...
Let me cut you off because I'm going to run out of time, Counselor. Let me ask you one more. In August 2021, we're not talking 20 years ago, we're talking 2021, you were involved in another report by the SPLC. And you said that voter identification, photo ID to vote, is burdensome and does not serve any legitimate state interest. Do you really believe that?
Senator, identification for voting is something...
Yes, but first, do you really believe that? You said it. You meant it?
The Supreme Court in Crawford v. Marion County has already upheld voter ID laws as per se constitutional.
Yeah, but you said it didn't serve any legitimate state interest. Do you believe that?
Again, Senator, without that language in front of me, it's hard to understand the context.
You said it. Here it is, August 2021.
Well, there are cases...
I'm just asking you to explain to me why having to prove you are who you say you are before you vote doesn't serve... You said it doesn't serve any legitimate state interest. I'm just asking you to explain that statement to me.
I understand, Senator Kennedy, and again, without being able to see the language that appears before and after, it's hard for the context.
You deny that you said it?
I can't say that I haven't seen that language in front of me, but what I do know is that there have been voter ID cases in which courts have found that
I'm familiar with the case law, but I'm asking what you think, because you may be on the 11th Circuit. Do you believe that voter ID is inappropriate?
My commitment is to uphold the Supreme Court's decision in Crawford v. Marion County.
I know, but here you said it was inappropriate. You deny that?
Well, again, Senator, it would be helpful to know if that section of the report also cites to cases in which federal courts have found that certain voter ID laws do pose an burden on voters.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Booker?
I'm going to yield to Senator Whitehouse, who's more senior.
Senator Whitehouse more senior than Senator Booker.
And more hair.
Now, that's no reason to yield.
That's a big group, Senator Booker.
Let's test them in the 40, though, and see who wins.
It's kind of a clean sweep of the committee, so to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, General, for being here. Could you pull that mic closer to you, please?
I'm sorry. Is that better? Yeah.
Yes, sir. General, I think the Justice Department is losing. I think you're losing on crime. I think you're losing on drugs.
I think you're losing on immigration. I think you're losing on Chinese espionage. Let me start with crime. What percentage of cops in America do you think are bad cops?
Very small percentage.
Like how small?
I don't have a number. I think that
Well,
most
you're the
police
country's chief, one of the country's chief law enforcement officers. Is it less than 10%?
Yes. Let me just be clear. We believe that most police officers follow the Constitution in their practices. Most police departments do, and all police officers, I believe, want to work in police departments that follow constitutional policing requirements.
Is it less than 5%?
I don't have the numbers. I think it probably is, but I don't have any numbers for you.
Okay. Do you think most cops are racist?
No, I do not.
What percentage of cops do you think, in your judgment, I know you can't give me an exact figure, do you think are racist?
I'm sorry, I'm not resisting because I have a number that I can't give you. I just really, I don't have any way of making that evaluation.
What's your gut tell you? Less than 5%?
One thing I've learned is to not give answers from my gut.
Right. Well, you think it's less than 5%?
I don't know the answer. I'm sorry.
Okay. You don't know?
I don't know, no.
Okay. Why doesn't the Justice Department support stop, question, and frisk?
I'm not sure what stop. You mean stop and frisk? Is that what you mean?
Some call it stop and frisk.
Look,
Terry v. Ohio.
Yeah, I don't know that the Justice Department has a position. This is a state and local role normally. Look,
Do you think it works?
I'm sorry?
Do you think stop, question, and frisk works?
I think in some circumstances it can work, but of course it can be abused.
Right.
Yeah.
But why doesn't the Justice Department aggressively encourage law enforcement officials to use that technique? It's been declared constitutional, as you know.
Yeah, the Supreme Court has affirmed the constitutionality of stop and frisk. That's in the Terry case. That's exactly right. But we don't do that. The federal government doesn't do patrolling. This is work for patrolling.
I know you don't, but you're one of the country's chief law enforcement officials, maybe the chief, and what you say matters.
Well,
suppose here's what I'm asking. Let's take Chicago, where we haven't made any inroads in stopping the killing. I mean, Chicago is now the world's largest outdoor shooting range. We know that a lot of the shootings come from gangs. Why wouldn't you want to call the police chief and the mayor in Chicago and say, look, you know who these gang members are. When you have reasonable suspicion under Terry v. Ohio, an objective standard, more than just a hunch, why don't you aggressively stop, question, and frisk these gang members? You'll get guns off the street, you'll get drugs off the street, and you'll get a lot of gang members off the street, and you'll stop people killing each other. Why won't you do that?
Look, the best way for the federal government to stop violent crime is to work at each local level and determine and let the state and locals determine what the best use of their own
Judge,
resources
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I'm trying to get some answers.
I'm sorry.
Why won't you do that? Just tell me why you won't do that. Your opinion matters.
Because there is no one solution fits all that the federal government can suggest to state and local law enforcement. We believe state and local law enforcement knows best as to what to do there. We provide.
It's not working.
We provide our technical expertise. We put lots of resources into joint task forces. We pick up.
I know I've got to shut this down. I've only got 15 seconds. Is that why you're asking in the middle of a raging inflation for 7% more money, $2.63 billion to provide technical technical advice? I mean, we're going backwards here on crime, General. You're the country's chief law enforcement officer. And you won't even answer my question about how you feel about stop, question, and frisk.
I think it's a resource allocation issue for each local police department. I believe that the Justice Department does the best by putting the money that we're asking for is increase in law enforcement that can be assisting the state and locals.
But General,
in the
is
best
that
way.
what we're supposed to tell the mothers of those kids getting killed in Chicago? You don't understand. It's a resource allocation issue.
No, what you're supposed to tell the mothers in Chicago, and what I told them when I was there, was the Justice Department was there to provide all the resources that this subcommittee will give us to stop violent crime.
But yet
the
you
more
won't
resources you
try
can give
and
us.
stop, question, and frisk.
That is a question for the state and the local, I'm sorry, for the state and the local law enforcement.
I didn't go over as much as Manchin did, Madam Chairman.
And that's not the standard by which we judge behavior.
Thank you, General.